and we're going to be working with Photoshop, and we're going to make an art piece for your gallery, and we're also going to explore some advanced collage techniques, especially refining selection. So to start this piece, we're going to work with the web gallery of art. And that is, if you want the direct URL, it's just wga.hu. I'm actually not sure what HU stands for. I think it might be in Hungary or something. I don't know. Anyways, you can also, of course, Google it. It's the Web Gallery of Art. It's one of the most authoritative compendiums of copyright-free fine art, and I love it. All right, so enter the Web Gallery of Art and do any search. You can browse around any way that you want. You can look for artists. You might look for Michelangelo or something. You can look for, if you put in text, you can search for subjects. So let me see. It auto-loaded the word gargoyle. Let's see if there's images of gargoyles. Oh, cool. So there's a gargoyle. So get several pieces for this tutorial. I would say about 5. I'm going to always load the biggest one, which is 200%. Right click, save image as, and then pay attention to where you are downloading it. Okay, so call this week 3 projects. Okie dokes. So I've downloaded that. I'm going to go in my search bar. You have to press the search button. That looks pretty cool. And remember, this isn't a creative assignment, it's just a tutorial, so so get whatever you like. You can, let's see, maybe you can browse by artist. So I will look for, I'll just look for Masaccio or something like that. Or maybe I'll just get some random stuff just to save time. I want to get some more paintings. Okay, so with everything we click 200%, we right click it and then we save it. And then we put it in a folder where we know that we can find it. So that is it for the first part of this, and then I will open all of these images over in Photoshop. In Photoshop, and we're just going to build a simple collage based off of this provided image that that you got from Blackboard that you could download, and then a few things that I got off of the WGA, the Web Gallery of Art. So I downloaded all these and I opened them in Photoshop together, and then finally I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to make a document that is fit for the web. Now you probably have the same version of Photoshop as I do since you're working on your own computer, so I'll just do web, web most common or web large. These are already kind of optimized for the web, so web most common is great. That's kind of a normal header preset. Create. Okie dokes. So this will be where I build my image, and then everything else I want to select parts of it and then bring it in. In order to do that, I want to familiarize myself with the tools over here. This is Move, right? You can press V to use it, and it can automatically grab a layer if you have it set that way. These are marquees. You can have a square one or a circular one. The single rows I don't use very much. This is a lasso, and you can cycle through these tools by pressing L. And I believe you can tear this off. Oh, you can't do that anymore. There's usually a way to tear this off if you need to refer to it, but let's just forget it. So the lasso has a couple functions. There's a circular lasso. There is a a polygonal lasso, and a magnetic lasso. And we'll go through all of those. This is another selection tool, and these are quick selection tools or magic selection tools. All right, so to get started, let's just start with the simplest one, maybe the square. So I'll go over to my platonic solids. I'll use a square selection, and it's really easy to see what that does. I can really easily make a square selection, right? I use my edit sequence, Command C. I always use Command C because I don't want to destroy the original reference. And then I'll go over to my my final file, and I'll hit Command V. Then I hit Command T. So Command V for paste, Command T for transform, and I press return to settle the transform. Cool. All right, so that is working well. Now I'm going to go back to my platonic solids thing, and I'm going to choose a circular selection set. And I'm going to add that circular selection set. I'm going to focus on the center of the sun, and you can see that it doesn't draw from the center like I want it to. So all I have to do is add option. So I now hit option on the keyboard, and I can draw from the center. So that is convenient, and that's true of the square one too, right? It's also not perfectly circular, so if you want to do some key command stuff, I can hold shift. So I'm holding shift and option while using my mouse, and I'm getting a pretty good selection set. Now it's still not aligned, so here's another little trick. Shift, option, and spacebar, and I can move my selection while I'm drawing it, right? So it's not important that you memorize all that stuff, but just just that it's there. Shift, option, and spacebar. In general, shift and option modify every single tool. So finally, I have what I want. Then I copy it. Then I go over to my main file where I'm building my collage, and then I paste. Then Command T for transform. Then I can load that one into place as well. All right, so I have two little layers in this thing, and that looks pretty nice to me. All right, and I have these two little objects. Now for the paintings, let's get more into organic selections, right? So, and here's what I want you to realize too on Photoshop, like this lesson is covering 4 tools, right? These 4 tools are all just selection tools, and they all do the same thing. So if you feel like you're not up to speed in Photoshop, or you still need to get skills, that's understandable, but know that it'll give you video previews. It'll tell you everything about the tool when you're using it, and know that everything in Photoshop, I always think of Photoshop as being quadruply redundant, right? So that means that there's 4 versions of every tool, and we could probably do the same thing with each of these tools. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the lasso tool, and I'm working with my Wacom, so it's really easy. It might be a little difficult with you for your mouse, but just do your best here. So I am selecting out a figure. Cool. Now see how I have to be conscious, and I have to join everything together. So you kind of have to plan your drawing as you're creating it. And while we are doing this, okay, so first I'm gonna just copy it, take it over to my main file, and then I will just go ahead and paste that there, transform it so it fits. Now, WGA is designed for print. The Web Gallery of Art is designed for print. So we are going from print to web because we're building a website. So everything is going to be quite a bit bigger. So make sure you know how to transform. All right, that looks quite good. Um, cool. So let's go back and do some more organic work here. Um, gosh, I don't like that many of the pictures I downloaded, but that's okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's say, for instance, that, just for example, so we have this girl and she's feeding her dog a treat. Let's say we made this selection and then we don't want the dog, right? And maybe it's too complex for us to go in and select around it and make it perfect every single time. So you never have to make it perfect. All right, you can always use the lasso and see these tools up here. That is add to selection, that is subtract from selection, and that is intersect. So I'm going to subtract the dog from the selection. Let's say for some reason I don't want him. And that will keep my selection in place, right? Oh, and then I missed this little triangle. So I've successfully subtracted the dog from the selection, right? I can also subtract the donut. So just know that you have those tools where you can continue to edit selections. If I'm here and I'm being like a pixel purist, I will, say like, oh, that line isn't right for hair. I want that to be a little more edited. And I can give myself plenty of time to go in and use subtract from selection to alter this, right? If I made a mistake, like, the selection didn't include this major part of it, then I'll go back to add to selection and I will include the part I missed, right? So really, really simple. If you're using a mouse or your trackpad on your computer, you are not going to be doing this very easily, but just practice with it and make sure that you understand the concepts. All right, so now some key commands for selection, some other major commands, right? So if I want to select everything, like let's say I want the background, I don't want her, I can make a selection of her. Then anything that I want to work with, I will find in the select menu. So I'll just do select inverse and then I have the background. But it's a little bit difficult to interpret because you have to be able to look at those lines called marching ants around the edge, right? Select inverse again. Cool. Now another thing I might do is I might want to deselect, right? So deselect is Command D because sometimes you feel trapped in selection. And let me just give you a quick example of that, even though you'll find out pretty soon. So let's say I have selection and then I'm painting for some reason inside this selection. And now I really want to work on the background, but I can't because I'm trapped inside the selection, right? So I would deselect, that is Command D. And you'll also notice that in our collage sequence, we have select all, which is Command A, right? So select all is Command A, deselect is Command D, and reselect is Shift Command D. So if you've just lost a selection set, then you can get it back that way. Now another little tricky thing, so see what I mean, like Photoshop is just overkill. It's existed for so long and it's so powerful that there's kind of more options than you would ever need, right? But everyone has their own specific way of working. So I think it's important for us to recognize that, these are my main commands and that's why they're here. And all these options, all this complexity that people find intimidating at the beginning is just not used very much. So we're not going to go through all of it, but one thing I will show you is that you can load selections. So you can save this selection if you want to and use it in the document. And then if I were to save it under that selection window, I would also have the ability to load it, right? So, okay, so I'm going to use this. I already have that collage element. That's fine. Now I'm going to go to back to my platonic solids and look at the next selection method. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the polygonal lasso, and this is perfect for the platonic solids. That's kind of why we included it. And basically, it just lets you do points, right? So when I see kind of blocky forms or geometric forms, I'll often use the polygonal lasso because I know it's going to correspond and be really easy for me. All right, I just hit Command C for copy, and then I'm going back to my collage, Command V, and I am bringing this into place. Cool. All right, now I'm going to all right, so now I'm going to go back to this girl and remember my undo sequence. In this case, just to remind you, I'm going to look in my history and I'm going to go all the way back to when it was opened. Um, and you can work with any image you want. And I'm going to start demonstrating magnetic ones and lassos, or magnetic ones and magic ones. Okay, so here's a magnetic tool. A magnetic tool will look for the difference between color, where the color really changes, and it will sort of stick itself to that difference in color. And this is something I hardly ever use, and it's especially tricky for beginners because you might get something that you don't really like. And the other thing is see how I'm stuck in it actually. See, so I'm stuck in it until I go back to the beginning and seal it, right? And click it. So it can be a little bit of a confusing tool, but if you go slow and you start with the idea that you're always getting back to the beginning, then that's sort of all you need to do. And remember, if you make a mistake, then you'll use this, add to selection, and you'll use a normal lasso, and you just grab those pieces that you missed. Cool. All right, but that gives you a sense of what magic tools or magnetic tools do. It sticks to the edge of something, and then it brings you, and then you have to circle back to the beginning and go really slowly. All right, Command D. I'm going to take a look at a magic tool. So a magic tool will supposedly magically make the selection for you. And the most prevalent one is the magic wand. Um, so supposedly it'll grab all this dark and make it one selection. So as you can see, it didn't work on this. It was too much, right? But if you are browsing stock photos and stuff like that, you'll see that they often have a green screen background. If you had one of those stock photos, the magic tool would work instantly. I'm gonna try to adjust my tolerance up here. So maybe if I make it something like 5, so 5 ranges of color instead of 30, then I can grab it and I can get a better result. But no, this just isn't working. And remember, in Photoshop, there's quadruple redundancy for everything. So don't be sort of like married to the tools and say like I have to figure this out. Don't think that the problem is ever you if you don't understand a tool. It's just that there's so many different tools and they're all delicate and they only are applicable in certain situations. So after doing this, I fooled around with this magic tool a little bit. It's just not working for me, so I would give up and I would select in a different way. Um, all right, but in this exercise, we're just trying to get a sense of what these tools do. So another magic tool is quick selection, and this is pretty nice. It is just like the magic wand, except it lets you paint areas, right? There we go. So I'm kind of having a good result with this. But in general, gosh, I just find these usually have a hard edge or, oh, see, that didn't work right. So I find that this usually has a hard edge, so I only use these sometimes. And almost specifically, this is when I buy a stock photo with green screen. So just experiment with these and know that you know them, and also get the sense of Photoshop here, where you realize that, oh my gosh, all 3 of these selection tools are basically the same. They have the same result, even if their processes are a little bit different. And all the tools are kind of like that, right? Like this this next group of tools, I mean, to an extent, this group of tools here is about healing and image repair, and they're pretty similar. And that is a function of painting. So this group of tools is painting and erasing. Those are all together. And the paint bucket and smudge tool are part of that too. And this adjusts like the color and photo. So this is all like your painting set. This is your selection set. This is your painting set. And then these are vectors and type, right? So for this piece, so I want to have two kinds of collages that you're going to do this week, in addition to creating your profile page. So this is the tutorial collage where you're adding in the elements and you're showing me the platonic solids and showing me different selection styles and make it a little more complex than this. That is upload that for the tutorial. And then for the creative project, just make a collage of your choice suitable for the web and upload that to the creative project, just where you're fooling around and making something a little more interesting, so that all these don't just look the same. All right, so that is it. And play with those selection tools and learn them. And that's all you need to know technically for this week in Photoshop.